Hey church, welcome back to week 5 of our Crew podcast. Today we don't have a local pastor with us, but we do have a local legend. Church, if you have not met Hayden Turlington, affectionately known as Haydos, then you are meeting him right now. If you've been checking in your kids to Kids Church, then you'll know Hayden and his beautiful wife, Amber, who are part of the team here at Eastlake. And if you're watching this podcast now, which is filmed a little bit in advance, then Hayden would have just preached his first Sunday at Eastlake. And I'm going to just prophetically put it out there now. Oh, what an awesome message that was on Sunday. But you're journeying through chapters 14, 15, and 16. That's the journal that we're going through this week. You would have just preached on Sunday, but we're going to have a bit of a conversation just about what you see in the text. But I want to start by just asking, what do you love about the Bible itself?
Yeah, I think the most thing I love about the Bible is just the complexity with it, but being so simple. So the Bible is simply laid out for us, right? It's, book by book, chapter by chapter, and it's laid all out there, telling us what we need to do. But within itself, it's so complex that, you can read the same passage of scripture and you could get 1,000 different reasons and, things out of it. So that's just my favorite thing about the Bible, is that you can just keep reading and you learn something new, you can gain knowledge, and it all intertwines.
It continues to be alive to us today.
And it's ageless. I think that's probably the big thing, is no matter what context you're reading it in, so many times I read the Bible, I'm like, they're literally talking about the 21st century. They're talking about cell phones and social media. I'm like, yeah, it's just crazy.
So true. Well, as we look at this and we're journeying through this study season, what is it that you're seeing in these 3 chapters, 14, 15, and 16?
Yeah, so I think I love how Matthew lays out his book. I think with every story that he adds in there, there's a reason and a purpose to why he did it. And I think it's key to point out at the very start of chapter 14, starting this kind of section, is he mentions briefly Jesus's mental state. So he starts talking about John the Baptist. At this time, John the Baptist and him were very close. He's the one who baptized Jesus. People thought John the Baptist was the Messiah, or that was in question. So an important person to Jesus, and he just learns that he's been beheaded. So hearing that, Jesus is now in a state where he's actually trying to get some solidarity. He's trying to, get some peace and to get his head around it almost. But through these chapters, Matthew shows that actually these crowds are following him. Jesus can't get away from the people. He's in the height of his ministry. He's doing all these miracles, and people are following him in thousands, not just his disciples, but thousands of people following him wherever he goes. So, I just think it's important to see that. And then when you read these miracles, the underlying message is he's showing compassion. So every time he does a miracle, that's him showing compassion to the people. So to be able to show compassion like that, with that mental state, or just hearing that, I think it's just shows
incredible example of selflessness.
Incredible example. Absolutely love that.
And it's packed with miracles, isn't it? Some of the most famous miracles out there. We've got feeding the 5,000. We've got Peter walking on water. And all sorts. And so as he moves into those miracles, what do you think's going on? I mean, let's point out the elephant in the room, that as you keep reading through this chapter, you discover that Jesus doesn't just feed 5,000, he feeds 4,000, commonly mistaken as the exact same miracle. If you didn't know, there's 2 different moments. What's the difference between the 2, I guess?
So I think, obviously, when you read it, sometimes you might be thinking, I've doubled back, or I'm reading the same story twice, because they are almost very similar. The layout's the same. It's a very similar amount of people that he's teaching to them. The disciples are saying, send them away. They need to go get some food. But Jesus, is compassionate for them again, and he feeds them. So I think the purpose behind why Matthew is doing it is just showing the relevance of, yes, they're very similar, but and they're also very close together. So we know from the context of the Bible, yes, they might not have been the next day, but when Jesus fed the 5,000, it was very soon after he did the 4,000 miracle as well. So just showing that it's Jesus repeats.
Yeah.
He's not just a one-time miracle.
Well, he's not a one-time wonder. I
Yeah,
love it,
it's not
one-time
just
wonder.
like a one-time. I turned water into wine. Walk on water. He repeats. Like, it's what's needed from the people, not what he's trying to show off. So I think it's just important to show, like, right back to back that Jesus did it twice, but that's okay. Like
And what's striking in there is that we don't know the gap between the timing, but we know that the disciples were at the first feeding of the 5,000.
Yeah.
Miraculous, 2 fish, 5 loaves. I always get confused, call it 5 fish, 2 loaves.
Yeah, I think it was 5 loaves, 2 fish.
We should probably look down.
We probably should look at
that. But what happens is the second time around, these same followers might have been a different crowd of 4,000. We don't know. But we know that the followers or the disciples of Jesus both, in both moments go, I don't think we've got enough.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine how you'd get to the second moment and still say, oh, Jesus, I'm not sure if you have enough. It's kind of wild, isn't it, that in our faith, God can do incredible things, miraculous moments, and yet there's something about our humanity that gets forgetful about God. Have you experienced that in your own sort of life and walk?
I mean, for sure. I mean, it happens all the time. It's anything like logical, happens. That's your first response. Like in our minds, we'll go with the most logical response. Me personally, I'm a very logical person. Like I do maths, things make sense.
Yeah.
It's logical. So sometimes,
you're a mathematician.
Yeah.
2 fish, 5 loaves doesn't add up.
Does
to
not add
5,000
up.
people.
But still, Jesus is showing that, like, with the disciples, yes, it's the same miracle, and they've forgotten. Like, their logic has overcome, this is a new set of people, or this is a new time. He's not going to do it again.
Yeah.
Logic says that we need to send them away, despite, seeing all these other miracles in between as well.
Yeah.
I think in between this time, Peter walks on water. So
it's
coming out of that as well, going, okay, well, he fed the 5,000. Peter's walked on water. Well, here we are again.
Oh, but we don't have enough.
We don't have enough. We just don't. And and I think that's so true in all our lives. I think, in even the little moments that you would just be thinking, if you have people over for dinner, I don't have enough food to feed them logically, right? But somehow you always make it manage. And that's just like a little example, but I think it just happens in everyday life.
I think every time that we move to fear or worry, we're moving almost to, sometimes our fears are illogical, but they're coming from this place. Well, it's the only way that it's going to go. That's how it's happened for everyone else. That's going to be my story as well. And anytime we do that, we're sort of forgetting the miracle working God, faithfulness of God, and that we don't need to have this mindset of, we've only got this, because God can do incredible things with small stuff. In fact, the scripture says, doesn't it, if we're faithful in the little things, then He'll trust us, and we're faithful with the big things.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. So you mentioned Peter walks on water. Everyone's tried it at some point in their life.
Absolutely.
Lord, as I step onto this pool,
let me just go across.
Exactly. What do you see in happening in that story?
So I think the obvious that we've been kind of showing is the disciples at this time of they've kind of forgetting the power, the miracles that Jesus is doing at the time. And even worse than that, in the story, it tells us, they're out in the water. Jesus is by himself. He finally got his alone moment. So he's trying to catch up to them. And, he just decides, I'm going to walk on water onto this boat where my people are, right? So he's catching up. He's walking on the water. And then they're scared. They're in the middle of a storm. Boat's not moving. And they see this person coming. And so they're calling out to him, if it's you, Jesus, here's Peter stepping up. Is it you, Jesus? Let me walk on water too. And sure enough, Jesus, all he has to say is come. And Peter's on the water. He's walking. He's in the middle of this miracle. And then all of a sudden, a light bulb switches, right? light switches, and he starts doubting, and he starts sinking in this water.
This isn't logical.
This isn't logical. Like, he's out in the middle of the sea,
Yeah.
and now he all of a sudden starts sinking,
Yeah.
which is in some ways worse, forgetting a miracle or forgetting the power while you're in the miracle, right?
Yeah.
Compared to what they were doing before, there was some time they forgot it happened.
Yeah.
Now here's Peter
In the midst of his miracle.
In the midst of it, and all of a sudden still doubting.
Wow.
And I think that comes from, while Peter's on the water, I mentioned before, they're in the middle of a storm, so Peter's here in the middle of water, no protection.
Yeah.
He's getting all this distraction, right? He's getting all these outside things hitting at him, and he lets it get in, right?
Yeah.
And that's the moment where he starts sinking. He lets that doubt in because he starts worrying about the storm and everything around him and not focusing on Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this common theme already that Matthew's unpacking in these few chapters of the miracle work of Jesus, the forgetfulness of our humanity and our tendency towards logic rather than living by faith.
Yeah.
And then in the final chapter, Matthew moves into, it tells a story of the Pharisees coming to Jesus, right? And what are they asking Jesus?
So now Jesus is at a point where these Pharisees are demanding him for miracles, right? They're like testing him. They're trying to make him slip.
Yeah.
So they're telling Jesus, do this miracle if you're this person. If you say who you are, do these miracles. And in a way, they're asking for these miracles because they want the miracles, but not the person, right?
Yeah.
So they're asking for these miracles because they're like, oh, we don't think you're the Messiah, but we still want these miracles, to happen. It doesn't matter who you are, right? So
we want to know the person that everyone thinks is amazing, but we don't actually just because of what he can do for them rather than who he is.
Yeah. Because they don't think he's the Messiah, right? So the context behind them is they're like, we don't think this guy's the Messiah, right?
Yeah.
So we're testing him.
Prove yourself,
right?
Yeah.
So they're asking for the miracles. They're not asking for the Messiah. So that's a huge, a huge difference between.
And again, how do you think that plays out in our life when we get focused on just what Jesus can do for us rather than who Jesus is? Have you seen that in your own life, in observing other people's faith journeys?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we can get caught up in like wanting the big miracle, right? Sometimes we go through our life waiting for our big miracle moment.
Yeah.
Waiting for this huge thing to happen so that Jesus can come and give us that miracle and to save us.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can be so fixated on that. Like, I want to pray that God gives me my dream job right now. I want him to give me my dream car. I want a house. That's asking for these things that Jesus is giving to you, right? These powers, these miracles, these miraculous things. But what we need to focus on is actually just that relationship with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
These miracles aren't just given to us for the sake of it, right?
Yeah.
It's when we have that relationship with Jesus, Jesus wants to then bless us with the miracles.
Yeah.
It's not the other way around where he gives us the good things and then we give him the relationship, right?
Yeah.
It's the other way around. So.
Yeah, and in any relationship that we're just wanting to get something from someone, people turn away from. Like
never works.
It never works.
Yeah.
It's because it's a transaction, not a actual relationship with Jesus. And so, I mean, it's pretty interesting that Matthew's put this together. Miracle, forgotten days later. Miracle in the midst of it, doubting because of the stuff that's swirling around them. And then these people who are demanding a miracle and missing out on the Messiah.
Yeah.
It's a big message.
Yeah,
and I think what are we missing out on in the relationship with the Messiah? It's the character of Jesus that you see in the chapters, like you said,
the
each
compassion.
moment, it's the compassion.
Yeah.
Which is powerful. And I know you would have unpacked this in an incredible way on Sunday. And I hope that just, journeying through this helps people see these stories from a different perspective. Maybe in their cruise, we can be asking that question. Are there moments where I've just wanted something from Jesus more than I've wanted Jesus?
Yeah.
Or am I actually not recognizing the miracle that's happening in my life right now because I'm just distracted by the storm around me? Or am I living my life a little forgetful, maybe even a little ungrateful, if we could challenge that far, for what God has done in my past? Those are important questions that we need to be asking about our faith journey, that we might be focused on him, becoming more like him. Haydos, you are a legend, and I can't wait for more of our church to get to know you and Amber. You've been a gift to our kids' ministry, and we just thank you for looking after my 2 kids at least, and really excited for what God's going to do through you and your new career as teacher over at Foundation. We love you. May God bless you and all of your crews as well.